Bonjour, je m'appelle CaroleAnn. This is Fireside Rebels. Thanks for coming. I'm if you're listening to me, you can't see what I'm wearing, but I'm wearing my French beret and my scarf, and I'm pretending I'm in Paris today. Paris is one of my favorite places, and yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about Paris and my reinvention of one of my chapters where I wrote a novel. Yeah, that was a big midlife reinvention for me. I've been an actor and a performer and a writer, considered myself a writer my whole life. I written screenplays and short stories, but I had never written a novel, and I always thought one day I will write a novel. So I back when so years ago, I was an elected official for 2 terms. I was a city councillor, which I've spoken about on another episode. But yeah, I was a city councillor, and man, that was stressful. Anyway, I ran for mayor, and I didn't win. I came in second, and which was a bit of a relief. And shortly after I lost the run for mayor, I finished this in my day job. I was in construction, and I was a project manager and architectural designer, and I had built this 34 unit seniors rental apartment building for my day job, which was like the pièce de résistance of my construction career. It was a legacy to my mom, who had passed away a few years earlier. She had been the president of the Seniors Housing Society, and she wanted to build this bigger building with an elevator to house more seniors in our community with affordable rentals. And so I built this building in my day job, which was super stressful, while running for mayor, which was super stressful. And so then I didn't win the mayor run. I was relieved, but also still super stressed out because I was building this building. Got the building built, got seniors moved in, and then it was Christmas, and I got laid off from my day job because my boss was like, "Well, I thought you were going to be the mayor. I don't have any work for you." So I got laid off, which honestly, like, it was a blessing because my adrenaline was like through the roof from having run for mayor while being on council, while building this building that was the biggest, holy shit, that was stressful. Anyway, I needed a break. So it was Christmas time, but I was shocked. Like, I got laid off. I was like, "Oh my god, like, unemployment." Thankfully in Canada we have unemployment insurance. Holy shit. I was just like, "Oh my god, I'm laid off at Christmas." Okay. So I just kind of like collapsed at Christmas time because I told, like, we got seniors moved into this building that now I was taking over as president, that my mom had been president of the society, and the society board wanted me to be the president once I was done with the construction. Oh my god. So I took over as president, and then as a volunteer, I was helping move seniors into this building and helping with some of the deficiencies and stuff. And then I'm laid off. So I basically said to the board of the society, like, "Okay, like, we're not doing anything over well, I shouldn't say that. I was there every day. I was there almost every day over Christmas break. I don't know who I'm kidding." I said, "I'm not going there on Christmas Day." I ended up having to go there on Boxing Day for a tragic reason. And I'm not going there on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. So I had a few days where I wasn't there. Took a bit of a break, but I like crashed over Christmas that year and was just like, "What the fuck am I going to do now?" Literally, like, I hadn't, I feel like my life had kind of like snowballed and taken a turn on its own. I I was like asked to run for council, and my mom kind of like said, "Yes, you need to run for council." And I was an activist. I was involved in, like, I was concerned about environmental issues and climate change and different issues. And so I was like, "Yeah, fuck it, I'm going to run for city council." So I getting elected, then it's like you're in, right? And so 4-year terms, and I did 8 years on city council, and it's like you got to run for mayor. I ran for mayor. So it was like suddenly, and then get laid off out from work. I hadn't really planned beyond, because you just don't know when you run for an elected position. You don't know if you're going to get elected. So I was like, I'll either get elected and then I'll be mayor, and then I'll be fucking super busy. My life will be no longer my own, and then I'll be completely bald because my hair started falling out shortly after I got on council. Stress, alopecia, perimenopause, all of the things. So fuck. So then I didn't really think beyond. I just thought I'd be working. Like I thought would be building more, designing more houses and building more stuff. I don't know. So holy fuck, I got laid off at Christmas, crashed, and then like literally didn't took kind of Christmas to be like, okay, now what? Like I just kind of, I think I just spent a lot of downtime, and I was like knitting a lot and reading and watching a lot of television and a lot of streaming TV shows. And then it was January. And so I started collecting unemployment and, or employment insurance, I guess we call it. And started right away, like, what am I going to do now? And I started like looking in the job ads and like trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I think I was panicking a little bit because my adrenaline was still through the roof. I had not taken any time to decompress, to slow down, I was not a person who did any meditation or anything like that. I was not going to counseling, therapy, nothing like that. I was just like allowing myself to be super stressed out and, oh my God, what am I going to do now? And so it was like January, and I started taking the time. I was like, okay, take the time to think about like what this next chapter could be. And I started kind of developing a process for myself of like kind of checklists and questions to ask myself, and started kind of breaking down like what next. And what kept coming up for me, and I started doing art. Like I remember like leading into Christmas, I was like, I started painting again and sketching, and I made some Christmas cards, and I painted a picture for my nephew and my brother. And, I started sort of getting in touch with art again. And so any kind of creative endeavors always kind of get me fired up. And I was an actor and a dancer and a singer. And yeah, I any kind of creative things start the juices flowing. And I really felt like, oh my God, I've been missing being creative so much. So that started awakening in me. And then it was like end of January probably. And I suddenly realized, well, I started thinking about, so Paris, I had gone to Paris for the first time a few years earlier, not many years earlier. I always, as a kid and as a teenager, had always, and an adult, I always had pictures of the Eiffel Tower and I always read novels about Paris and watched movies about Paris. Always was kind of obsessed with Paris, and always thought that I would go to Paris. And I was like in my 40s and I hadn't gone to Paris yet. That's a lie. I was skating in an ice show when I was 19 in Europe, and we transferred through Paris to fly home. So I was in the airport. I was in a shuttle bus, and I was in an airport in Paris, and that was it. So anyway, I always wanted to go to Paris. So I did. So a number of times in the last, few years previously, I had made little trips to Paris, and yeah, just wandered around by myself, which was incredible, and gone to all the museums and stuff. So I became sort of a little bit obsessed with Paris. It's still like it's one of my go-to places if I do ever travel, which has not been very much lately, but I will go again. Anyway, I started thinking, I don't know what it was that, I suddenly started, I created this went through this process of like, okay, what are you going to do now? What's your next chapter look like? And I started asking myself questions. And something that kept coming up for me was, I always thought one day I would write a novel. It was just like a fact for me. I always knew. Oh, and it was like, when you retire, you're going to write a novel. And it's like, okay, why am I waiting to write a novel till I retire? Why am I waiting at all? And now, holy fuck, I'm off. I'm laid off work. I've got all this time now. Like Jesus, I should be writing my novel. So I, yeah, I, I don't know. There was some funny things that happened that I started. Well, I started watching about, like, I don't know. I was watching interviews and I was like, thinking about being middle aged, being pissed off that I didn't see a lot of middle aged women reflected in a lot of the films and television and novels. And I think I just got kind of pissed off and I was like, what if, what if there was a woman like me that this, like, there was a story about? And so I started like being curious about like, what would that look like? And I did it. Oh, and I did a writing course. I did a master class with an author who talked about writing. Don't like write what you know, write what you would want to read if you bought that book. Like whatever you're interested in reading, write that and write what you'd want to read. So I started going, okay, like I don't, there's not enough stories, like there's not enough. I love spy stories and um adventure and mystery and that sort of thing, and romance a bit, but I'm really like a spy suspense kind of, yeah, girl. So I was like, yeah, there's not really any spy, I don't know many spy stories with a middle-aged woman as the protagonist. So I started, so then I was listening to Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic, and she had a lot of really good insights that, and just was like, write the fucking book. Don't like, and it can be imperfect. And also, I think it was Anne Lamott that says, write your shitty first draft. I was reading and listening to audiobooks and reading different books about writing and obviously procrastinating about writing by reading about writing. And then, yeah, it was like, just start fucking writing. Just write think of it as the first draft is a shitty first draft. That is the best fucking advice. Anne Lamott, pretty sure, Bird by Bird. And Elizabeth Gilbert saying, don't quit your day job, but like just start writing and start. And I think it was Lee Child, just write what you are interested in, just fucking write. And so then I started thinking about, okay, and I kind of started an outline, but I didn't really know what I was going to write about. And I started looking through pictures. Well, I think I did write down, well, I'm super interested in Paris. I think I wrote like, well, if I go to a bookstore and there's any novels or books that say Paris on the spine or on the, I buy the book. Like it's ridiculous. Like I have so many books about Paris, but I love them. I love putting myself in Paris. So I think I might have started also then looking. So I think I wrote Paris. It might take place in Paris. I was like, what could it be about? And I started looking through, I think, pictures of myself in Paris. And I think that must have been what sort of spurred the idea, was just like some experiences that I had in Paris and meeting strangers in Paris, like, just meeting people in random places like cafes or museums. And I did strike up a conversation with this one woman that I met, and she had an interesting story. And it just, I remembered having met this woman and just thinking, what if? Like, I remember her story was unique and interesting. And I was like, what if, like, from that moment on, like this caper unfolded, like, because my mind, I'm such a goofball. Like I have this crazy imagination. So I quite often will turn like just everyday normal events into a movie in my brain. I'll be like, what if as soon as I walked away and she went the other direction, what if suddenly a SUV pulled up and kidnapped her? I was just standing there like, now what do I do? I think that is like literally how I got my book idea for Under a Pair of Spies. So wrote I wrote a novel. So I started, like, again, I was like listening to different books about writing and watching YouTube videos about how to outline, and just, yeah, trying to like learn as much as I could in kind of a short period of time of like writing the book. And I had decided I'm just going to start writing. It doesn't have to be perfect, because my perfectionism is so fucking, it gets in the way so much that I really was like, okay, I just need to write, and it doesn't need to be perfect. Who the fuck am I trying to impress anyway? I just want to write for myself. That's like, I want to get this done. So I started writing, and then I read somewhere a strategy that Ernest Hemingway had employed, that he used to say, and a lot of other writers have, I'm sure, used this technique, to never stop writing for the day until you know what you're going to start writing the next day. Because, yeah, writer's block is a real thing. If you are kind of like making it up as you go, and you're not, if you don't have an outline, like, seriously, having an outline, even if it changes, like having a rough outline and kind of chapters or even just sections of the book kind of mucked out, like you kind of know where you think it's going to go, is really helpful. But Ernest Hemingway I read that in a book that I have, that he said he never finishes writing for the day and putting his typewriter away until he knows what he's going to write the next day. So that he literally, so I was like, that is such good advice. I would just, on my page in my laptop, I would just like write a quick like line or two about where I'm going next. And I pretty much, like, every chapter in my book is kind of a cliffhanger, just about, like, almost like just about every chapter ends as a bit of a cliffhanger jumping into the next chapter. So I wanted it to be like an action packed kind of, yeah, that you kind of didn't want to put it down, that you was like, oh, I gotta keep reading one more. I love those type of books that you really like, I gotta read one more chapter and find out what happens next, and there's no like clear pauses. It just like goes. So I would write a little note when I would always try to finish a chapter, and then I would write a little note about the next day or the next chapter, however it, like, usually that would be like 5 minutes later, whatever, in the next chapter, but or the next morning or whatever. But I would write a note that this is where that's going, and if I had any other thoughts about something even further in that chapter or even the next two chapters, I would make a note. And I had a working document that was that I kept my ideas flowing in that. And it was basically, yeah, like a rough outline of chunks of the book written out. And the most interesting thing that I fucking loved writing this book. Like, it was so much fun and so fulfilling. And like, I can't even tell you, like, I lived vicariously because I kind of modeled the character after me, but then it takes, like, it takes on a life of its own. She takes on a life of her own. Like, it suddenly becomes someone who's way cooler and more adventurous than me. But it was fucking awesome because I could just live vicariously through her. And so, so a friend of mine was going to Paris um, to take a course in chocolate making just outside of Paris. And so and this had been like months earlier, she said, if I go take this course, do you want to meet in Paris? And then you could, like, you go to Paris like you do sometimes. I would go maybe once. I didn't go once a year, but I went, I seem to be going every few years or so. So she's like, then you can show me around Paris when I'm done my chocolate course. And I was like, yeah, that would amazing. So I kind of had that as my excuse as well. Like, oh, like, we're gonna go to Paris. So I definitely should write something about Paris. So anyway, I start writing the book, and it literally takes on a life of its own. Like, the characters, I think I did a pretty decent job of fleshing out who I envisioned the protagonist is based after me, but she turns into this incredible, like, different person. But anyway, all the other, like the main characters, I fleshed them out and then would keep refleshing them out as the story progressed. Fuck, the story took it, like these characters started writing the story for me. Like they started just it taking over and it took on a life of its own, which was so fun because I would be like writing and it was like the story was being channeled through me and coming to me, and I wasn't really in charge a lot of the time. I would be like, "What? You want me to write what?" And I would be writing and I'd think, "Oh, that's what we're doing this chapter? Okay." And I would have to go back and actually modify my outline in certain ways because this was better. Like it was more organic and the characters were driving the plot suddenly. And it was like, and if it was, I mean, I definitely had a few times where I was like, no, we're not doing that. That like a little bit much, or it didn't quite jive with the, what was happening. But I definitely didn't let the characters dictate completely to me, but they definitely, the story started kind of writing itself, which was, it was so fucking fun. Like I can't even express how much fun it was. And yeah, it was so joyful. And every time I would go meet a friend I only told a small handful of friends, close friends, that I was writing this novel. And so when I'd go for beers or go for dinner with a friend, that knew, one of my friends who knew, they'd be like, "How's it going? How's your novel writing coming on?" I'd be like, "Oh my God, it is so fucking fun." And I'd be like bursting to like tell them where the protagonist was at now and what was happening. And oh my God, and she ran into this person and this happened. And then and it was like a spy. So it's a sexy spy novel. So yeah, it's sexy and it's pretty fun. So, and I'll put a link in the description for if you do want to check out my sexy spy novel. It's a fun read and I'm super proud of it. Yeah, I had so much fun. I can't even tell you. And I took this picture. I designed the whole cover and the cover art and everything. It might not be the greatest, but whatever. I took that picture too. I took that picture. That's from one of the bridges on the Seine, and that's the Musée d'Orsay, which something happens at the Musée d'Orsay. And I did all that art myself and did all the self-published it and did it all myself. And I just wanted to do it to prove that I could do it. And I fucking did it. I fucking wrote a novel. And I'm so fucking proud of that. And it's like, yeah. So there's several other stories to follow this one in the series that I'm doing research on now. So I do want to continue writing. And yeah, I can't recommend it enough if one has sort of a little niggling inside and creative instincts and wants to write and has the inclination of a writer. I can't recommend it enough. You need to do it, and fuck, it's just like the best. Anyway, that was a fun little journey down my rabbit hole of my novel and Paris. And now I'm missing Paris because I'm pretending to be in Paris right now. But I do recommend going to Paris, and I have all of the best locations in my brain. And if there was, maybe I'll write a blog sometime of all my favorite places to go and see in Paris, because oh yeah, there's some good ones like the Musée d'Orsay for sure, the Louvre of course, but it's so massive. I don't know. It's like take you a week to get through the Louvre. Shakespeare and Company bookstore. There's this. I wrote about that in there. The light show. What's it called? La Lumiere. I forget. Yeah, there's so many. Oh, just walking around Paris and all of the museums and galleries, it's bananas. Like I just love it so much. And Montmartre, obviously, yeah, I could go on about it all day. So you can just go on YouTube, and you can probably do a walking tour of Paris on YouTube, and it's like almost like being there, but it's not. So I highly recommend going when it's not a busy time of the year because there's a lot of people, and I highly recommend staying away from the busy places. But if you go there, you got to do the busy touristy things anyway, like go up the Eiffel Tower. That was incredible. Anyway, that's my little sojourn to Paris, and I hope you've enjoyed it. So let's ignite our second act. Bonsoir, mon ami.